Now, let's look at what happens when a victim is identified. As mentioned earlier in the training, the TVPA created a process to certify victims federally, and the New York State anti trafficking law created a process to confirm victims in the state as a method of collecting data as well as a referral mechanism to provide access to specialized assistance and services to victims. The New York State law requires the Division of Criminal Justice Services and the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance to accept referrals of potential victims from local law enforcement agencies or local district attorneys' offices. Once a referral is received, DCJS, in consultation with OTDA, determine whether to confirm the referred person as a victim of human trafficking through the New York State law and definition, and or to refer the person to the federal government for certification as a victim of human trafficking under the federal law and definition. Again, I want to clarify that the confirmation process is through state law and the certification process is through federal law. These are processes that allow victims access to specific services. In your role, if a potential victim is identified by you, you can either refer them to contact their local law enforcement or you can assist them with this. Or if they are not comfortable with either of that, or you are uncertain if the person is a victim, you can contact the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline to get confidential assistance or local referral information. The hotline number is provided later in the training when we discuss resources. Once confirmed in New York State or certified federally, domestic adult victims, those who are U.S. citizens or qualified immigrants with a legal permanent status, are directed to the local Department of Social Services Human Trafficking Liaison. Once at the local Department of Social Services, the victim is assessed to identify their needs. Please take a moment and read the list of services provided to victims. All of these services may have an income eligibility requirement to them. A foreign victim who is a non-qualified immigrant without a legal status who is confirmed and or certified is referred to the Response to Human Trafficking Program. The Response to Human Trafficking Program provides assistance with case management, shelter, translation services, health assessment, medical care including prescriptions, mental health counseling, food, immigration relief through legal services. Legal services will assess and determine what immigration relief they may be eligible for, such as a T visa, U visa, or other relief. With these visas, often adult victims, not children, have to cooperate with law enforcement. Other identified services, such as employment or education needs, may also be provided through the program. Foreign victims who may be facing legal status issues can potentially receive immigration relief through the T visa, U visa, or other relief as mentioned. The T visa is for a victim who is or has been a victim of a severe form of trafficking and is willing to comply with reasonable requests for assistance in the case investigation or prosecution. Exceptions to this include when the victim is facing emotional hardships or if the victim is a minor. Children under the age of 18 do not need to and are not required to comply or assist in the case. The U visa provides immigration relief to victims of certain criminal activity who have suffered substantial physical or mental abuse as a result of their situation and who have been or are likely to be helpful to law enforcement. There are other forms of immigration relief that may be available to victims, so it's important for victims with undocumented status to be screened by an immigration legal services provider to determine the immigration relief that is most appropriate for him or her. Minor victims, regardless of their status, are referred to the local Department of Social Services for services immediately after OTDA and DCJS receive referral. They are referred to the local Department of Social Services prior to confirmation and or certification decision is made. Local departments must assess the minor's needs as soon as possible and provide services or make referrals for services, especially assessment if placement is needed. At this point, the New York State Office of Children and Family Services is notified and provides assistance by working as a liaison with the local departments during the assessment process and offers assistance if needed. If the victim is an unaccompanied minor, local districts are advised to consider the Unaccompanied Refugee Minor Program as a potential resource for trafficked minors who are non qualified aliens under 18 years of age. Domestic victims can receive certain services regardless of state confirmation or federal certification. However, confirmation and certification can assist in the recognition that the person is a trafficking victim and assist providers in knowing what types of services to provide, as well as to assist the state in collecting data to have a more accurate picture of the issue of human trafficking. Now, let's look at some important things to be aware of when working with a victim. It is extremely important to be aware of the proper terminology and language you should use when interacting with a victim, potential victim, or even just talking about human trafficking, especially sex trafficking in general. Your language, the way your word thinks, the way you address victims matter. Take a moment and look at the two terms and think about what they mean, whether intentional or not. When hearing the term minor victim of human trafficking, one may think about a child who was forced to do something or had no choice or power in a situation, and then may relate that to the victim being someone needing intensive support and specialized services. Utilizing this term looks at the victim from a lens of what happened to the victim without placing a label on them. Now, let's look at the term teen or child prostitute. This term is more of a label and implies that the person had a choice in what they did and paints them as a juvenile offender or criminal. This is a term that is often used as an insult and is derogatory. It is also associated with a long lasting stamp of stigma and reinforcing stereotypes. Remember, it is very important to be careful about the language that we use when we talk about or to victims. Always use sensitive language while interacting with an individual. Victims open up and seek services from agencies and individuals who see them as a victim, are non judgmental, and understand it wasn't their fault.